Okay, good afternoon everyone. Many thanks for coming along to this session. My name's Duncan Burbidge from Stream UK, which is part of Stream AMG, and I'm talking about live transcoding and some of the considerations behind live transcoding this afternoon. I'd like to start just by explaining a little bit about Stream AMG and who we are. So we're Europe's largest independent streaming media provider. We were established in 2001 as Stream UK, and that's really been the main institution going over the years. We've now got offices in Italy, Spain, Sweden, and joint ventures in Turkey and Germany, along with an R&D office in Malta. We've got a lot of clients in sport, a lot of Premiership football clubs, which has grown from 4 last year to 6 this year, so we're doing more Premiership football clubs than anyone else. And really, sport is a big theme, or a current theme that you'll be seeing throughout this presentation. What we do is we're very much a technical agency. We encode, normally on site, or we acquire the signal via satellite or IP. We transcode, and it's the cloud matrix and the scalability of that cloud matrix which will be the focus of the first part of this. We use our media platform, which is an online video platform based on the Kaltura code base, to prepare the content in an attractive player and include business rules, which might be geotargeting, might be advertising, might be pay-per-view. And we collaborate and integrate on the bits that we don't do, or we don't do very well. So this is one of our basic workflows. This is the main workflow we use for football clubs currently. We're plugged into Live Venue TV, which is a company called ADI based up in Preston. I don't know if any of you know them, but they won the contract to put in fibre to all the Premiership League, Championship League 1 and League 2 football grounds, and have a tremendous amount of connectivity going into their Preston network. We have encoders in there. From those encoders, we use our cloud-based cloud matrix to turn it into a variety of different formats. In fact, 17 different formats. And then we use media platform to present it to the end user in an attractive way. The Stream media platform really is at the centre of this, and this is where we consider our value to be added. It's based on the Kaltura code base, on the Kaltura Community Edition, and that is a community of about 100,000 open source developers, which enable us to keep it up to date. We started in 2001 at a time where you would do everything yourself, and we carried on doing everything ourselves until about 2006, 2007, when the rate of change just got so great, with Flash coming in, with HTML5 coming in, with advertising coming in and different pay-per-view rules. We couldn't really keep pace without getting perhaps £5 million worth of investment. So we had a look around at Brightcove, at Uyala and the other OVPs, and decided to go with the Kaltura Community Edition code base, which has served us very well. We've developed on top of that according to European needs. So at its most simple, that means encoding from a PAL 25 frames per second profile rather than a NTSC 29.97 frames per second profile. And we've done that really on sport, according to sporting needs. And when we say sporting needs, we use it really as the critical market, because with sports you have fans, and the fans are willing to pay £2, £3, £4, £5 a month or £5 a game in order to watch that, but it has to be delivered very well. It has to be of good quality. They have to be able to see a very small ball, and if they're paying for something and don't get it at good quality, then they'll let you know about it quickly. So really this sports area, it's been very good for us. It's been, we've been lucky because Perform have pulled out of sports to a large extent as we've come into sports, so that's been a good thing for us. We've been lucky from that respect, and it's also really informed our development. I mean we had to really keep on top of a lot of areas. And the case study you see later on is a case study that's running currently, so it's a live event that's running currently, and a live project that's running currently, and it is a sporting project. So it's also backed by in-house experts. When we go up against Brightcove and Uyala, one of the main things we say is, what happens on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock when your technical people want an answer? Can you get it from the American-based companies, or would you prefer to talk to us? So the media platform looks something like this. These are the transcoding flavors that it turns it into. This is the typical asset window view that you see from these sort of things. This is our player, which includes the ability to share it, to send feedback on it. The video keeps playing whilst it's shrunk in that area. And these are our stats, which we work very hard on. And a big part of the stats is reporting on live. The real-time reporting on live is a key part of our proposition. It's also used not only as an entity that provides video to your website, but also something that allows you to get content out to different other platforms. And the role of YouTube and other large video search engines and video consumer-facing video propositions is examined later. We see YouTube as something that very much helps with our efforts, and it's essential to include that in both your live and your on-demand strategy. For the on-demand strategy, it simply has content syndicated to it. For live, the use of YouTube Content ID in order to protect your rights, and working with YouTube to use that is an important part of monetizing your content. This is how you put adverts into the player. Again, this will be brought out in more detail in the monetization section, but put simply, you've got 4 different types of ads. You've got pre-roll ads, bumpers, really pretty similar to pre-roll ads. You've got overlay ads, which aren't video, but are just a graphic that comes up over the player and can be clickable and can include anything, particularly betting opportunities, which we'll come to later. And you've got post-roll ads, which are a little bit less useful, but some people do utilise those. This is the other payment option that's built into the system. So this is on the Invidious platform, and you have all the payment needs that you want. So you can have 24-hour access, you can have 48-hour access, you can have subscriptions and tokens and so on. And the key to this is that it's built entirely into the player. So if you have a live event and you syndicate just the player, then the business rules remain in that player and people can pay from it on another site, rather than having to bring everything back to your original destination website. So what we are is technical enablers. We do technical solutions. We don't know the markets as well as you typically being a content owner or someone who has a strategy under development. We're not here to finalise your commercial strategy. We'll present options and allow you to make the choice for them. We don't do a distribution strategy, so anyone who's in the rights business and knows about global rights, we know nothing about that. And just to reiterate, we know nothing about rights. We're not very good at that. We don't want to have dinners in Monaco talking about rights. We do collaborate and integrate, so we certainly look at adding value to both live and on demand. Data feeds are a big part of that, and a big part of what we're looking to do over the next couple of years is bring in data in the same way that people like Delta Trade brought it into the Olympics and the BBC do very well. That data layer which allows users to access the video for both live and on demand. So live, critically, you need a DVR player which allows you to rewind in time. But the overlay of those graphics makes the experience very much more attractive, particularly attractive to the sports fan. We see the potential for the sports fan to go to online as their preferred destination, so preferred over TV, and having data within that is really the key area. We use content management systems to improve workflow, particularly something like Sitecore, where their ability to learn about user habits through the user's patterns across the entire website can inform the video. It can inform not only the related content that appears after the video, but it can allow you to appropriately add additional information to it. So if my mother's watching a video about tennis, she doesn't want any data at all. It'll confuse the hell out of her. But if Dave Mallinson is watching a video, he wants all the data he can possibly eat. Man loves data. Video destinations and search engines to build traffic, that's really YouTube. YouTube's an essential part of this, and bringing people from YouTube is absolutely key. And design and build partners. We work with a number of these. We're not good at design, but people like Ripple Effect, Aqueduct, Sotic, Pulse Live, they're all very good design and build partners that we work with. Here's an example of one of the sites we've done for Sunderland. This was in cooperation with Aqueduct, as it happens. This is a typical data integration. In this case, it's a live audio feed that's brought in there. So this is a DVR player, and it's using an Opta feed. Opta gather all the football stats and data, and the Opta feed is used there to index the player And it means not only can people come along and watch the game as it's happening and see the marker points in it, but you can come any point after that game and go back in time and see the key markers. So it adds value for the fan. It also potentially gets around the need to create highlights. If you present this kind of thing to the user at the end of the game, you can perhaps, and it's arguable, you could perhaps get away from creating the highlights and paying the production fees for your live events. And here is the current Liverpool Go site. So looking more closely at the live transcoding part, one of the key parts of our live proposition is to build a scalable and reliable transcoding part. And of course, we use the cloud for that. We don't use the cloud entirely, but we use the cloud. So I think it's an important place to start in talking about what is the cloud and covering cloud technology, the business models that are appropriate to investigate in the cloud, and the way to get quality assurance from a cloud-based offering. So these are what we consider to be the features of virtualization. There are features of putting something in the cloud. They're fairly uncontentious, but it's worth, again, stating up front, and so you can see the sort of assumptions we're working on. We assume it to reduce infrastructure cost. We assume it to have high availability and allow for business continuity. We assume that there is adequate load balancing in place and that it can be made fault tolerant. And also it reduces environmental hazards. And that's important from a business perspective, whether you care about the environment to a great extent or not. When you have a proposal and you include an environmental aspect, then you're likely to score more highly than one that doesn't, just in terms of the hard business reason for that. So we looked at several options for the cloud, and these were the three that really came up as potential alternatives. So we're looking here, the key problem is we want to transcode. Transcoding needs lots of processing power, and it needs lots of processing power that can be done on a variable basis. So it's ideally suited to the cloud. We looked at three main options. We narrowed it down to Amazon, to Joyent, and to installing our own VMware system. And at the time when we were evaluating it, which was about a year ago now, these were the prices in operation. So Amazon, you were basically looking at a high memory version for £1,200 a year. Joyent about £1,195 a year, and VMware is about £5,000 per processor. And that really, that per processor, shouldn't be used in a presentation, makes it very expensive. But nonetheless, what we opted for was to have a core of 24/7 VMware instances and to use the cloud for scalability. Now, just to compare more closely what the capabilities of those instances are, these are Amazon's capabilities, 17.1 gigabytes, 420 of storage. This is the VMware obviously depends on what hardware you put it onto. You need to actually buy the hardware yourself. And Joyent, remarkably similar. So those two, Amazon and Joyent, were absolutely comparable, and really there was not much to choose between them. But there was one big factor that made us choose Amazon. We ended up using Amazon as our scalable infrastructure, and that was the Amazon CloudWatch. And this was absolutely critical for us. Joyent has something similar, but it was nowhere near as attractive to us. And we were able to use Amazon and to implement it for auto-scaling purposes. So when we have live events coming up, we're able to set up the test streams and see what the usage is on existing infrastructure, and if it triggers the alerts, we automatically scale instances. So the key part of the workflow is you set up what's going to happen. It's very predictable because you have a single ingest stream and you have 17 encoding streams, so you know how many events you can do. You know also that if you get to 10, you're going to be utilising the cloud immediately, and we tested that. This is an image of the infrastructure, the monitoring tool, which just shows you the sort of usage graphs you might expect, and these are plugged directly into the alarm wizard, and the alarm wizard is what triggers the action. So when an alarm is set to alarm, the action type is auto-scaling policy. And this really gives us a tremendous level of security, and it's something that's very easily understood by our clients, that we have a scalable transcoding infrastructure where the alarms allow us to continually have capacity. And this was the most cost-effective way to do things, to have a basic layer which is in our data centres in Telehouse Metro and in Enfield, have the basic VMwared transcoding 24/7 availability, which does about 10 continuous live streams. And on top of that, we have Amazon running the cloud-based streams. We average at about 50 live streams at a regular level. So our cloud infrastructure is being used all the time at the moment. And that's a current business case for looking to scale the existing underlying architecture. So what are the core components of the live service? The first one is video and delivery quality analysis. The second, which is very important too, not to be neglected, is the media workflow. And the third is the reporting. In terms of that first one, in terms of the video and delivery analysis, we use a combination of four things. The first thing is real eyeballs. For high-profile events, there's no substitute for actually having people who are looking at the stream. There's no amount of monitoring that can pick up those sort of artifacts and issues which are indicative of some fault. And the fault might be at a system level, it might be at a CDN level, it might be at a local player level. And these real eyeballs are best from your own company, the best from us, but they're also, it's important to make it very easy for your users to feedback their experience and to capture the network conditions which are present on the local machine and the local machine conditions at that time. So we have within our player a feedback button. It has the 5 most common issues that are encountered, and when a user sends in that issue, it captures the network conditions to that user and gives us very detailed feedback on the problems that are coming in. And what we expect from that is to be able to see geographical patterns if there's a geographical problem. System problems we'll generally already know about it, but it gives us great feedback on geographical problems. Copper Egg is the second level, and Copper Egg is something that we've only recently brought in this year. But one of the real strengths of Copper Egg is that it does distributed monitoring. So we have standardly these 6 different locations, and we really get a global idea of where problems might be. And that backs up the user feedback and our own eyeballs on the system. Nagios, of course, is a standard monitoring tool, and that really looks at the loads on the processors, on the machines, and looks at our real hardware health. And AudioMon is something we've written ourselves, which is a very, very end-of-line monitoring system. It looks at the continuing presence of audio on the systems. It was originally developed for monitoring BBC audio feeds, but it is equally applicable to video feeds. If there's continuous audio going on, it's absolutely fine, but if there's a pause in the audio, then it triggers alerts. And you can set up a detailed schedule within that. You can set up a silence alert within that. And it's a very reliable test of whether things are working or not. Because despite the predictive abilities of Copper Egg and Nagios, there's nothing like getting to the actual end of the stream and checking that the very end of the stream is actually going through. The media workflow is really an experience thing, and it's something that we design individually for each individual client. I'll be showing you a case study for RTE, the Irish broadcasters, later, and you'll see in that the sort of detail that goes into the media workflow. It's of course all about resilience, it's about error handling, and it's about having something in place which is understood by everyone. So it needs to be a simple and easily defined process, and to include third parties in the right way. And then reporting, the live part of our reporting was really enhanced last year. And it's been a key value add to just show people that key metric, how many people are connected to my stream currently. And it's resulted in some very interesting findings, particularly the relationship between the amount of revenue you get from live versus on demand. And again, I'll come back to that. So looking at the presentation of live, The first thing is to make it simple. Make it as simple as possible for the end user. The second thing is also to make it simple, but not to confuse that simplicity with any sort of simplicity of design or back-end systems. The simplicity to the user is your initial aim, but it shouldn't be confused with the amount of work and the amount of processes and the amount of complexity that underlies it. So it's very important to know that simplicity is only one way. This is the RTE case study. RTE is the main broadcaster in Ireland, and we're doing hurling and Gaelic football for them this year. And these are very interesting sports because they're niche sports. Previously, we've done a lot of Premiership football. We're doing some very big pre-season tour games this year. There's a particular tournament going on in the States, which we're doing. But this is interesting because it's a niche sport, and what tends to happen with the bigger sports is the rights get tied up. So for all our work with the Premiership, we never show any live games because Sky have them all. It's worth millions, worth billions. For RTE, the rights were much more acquirable, not by us, but they're much more acquirable. We do Gaelic football and hurling, and we're doing 45 games for the 2014 season, which just started in June, so we're just on our third weekend of that. And in terms of simplicity, it's not us that designed this site, it's a company called Freeman Contingent. But I think it's a very, very good, very, very well-designed site. So although this looks like an extremely long graphic, what you actually see when you go to the web page is this kind of thing. So you're on the web page, you have a video here. Oh dear, sorry. Let me try and do that without touching anything further. This is one limitation of Prezi. It's a bit too automated. So you have a video at the top which tells you about the service, and then you simply have the ability to either buy a season pass or buy individual games. Once you've chosen which game you want, you're taken to that, you're given details about the game, and you're asked if you'd like to pay it now, or if you've already paid for it, you're asked to enter your 4-digit access code. And all the time, the emphasis is on absolute simplicity. It's a really beautifully designed site, and it wasn't me that did it. It wasn't my company that did it either. I've got nothing to do with it. Once you've made the purchase, you get an access code to use it on multiple devices. Multiple devices is a necessity these days. We support iOS, Android, tablets. The only thing we don't really support at the moment, as opposed to the excellent work that's been done by BT Sport, we don't really do smart TVs. And the reason we don't do smart TVs is very simple. We expect the browsing capabilities of smart TVs to go beyond their current levels. So currently we see it as a kind of 4-year-old mobile browsing capability. And we're looking for that to improve and for HTML5 to be the default delivery mechanism for those. So we're not expecting to profitably develop many apps for that. It already works in Samsung, it already works in Chromecast, but it works as a consequence of those devices being able to cope with the kind of HTML5 or the tab browsing, the tab casting capabilities they're designed for. So we're kind of staying away from supporting smart TVs because they're too diverse, they're changing too quickly. We think they're about to all be supporting HTML5, and their usage, their penetration isn't great either. So we support many devices, not HTML5. Once you've entered the code, you see the player play here. It's a bit smaller than we'd have liked it, but of course you then can go full screen and see excellent quality player. So that is delivered at 500 kilobits per second, which is the absolute lowest bit rate, and that's aimed at people on very poor connections globally. It's delivered at 1,000 kilobits per second, and it's delivered at 2,200 kilobits per second, which we call HD. As you're probably aware, the HD standard is really a broadcast standard. It doesn't really translate to media, to digital media. As far as it goes, you can get HD at 34 kilobits per second. It's just going to be very blurry. HD is the pixel size, but nonetheless, we do a genuine 1280 pixel size at 2.2 megabits per second. So here is the video workflow that I talked about. This gives you an indication of both some of the constraints of the service and some of the practical decisions that were taken. The first was that the signal acquisition, the primary signal acquisition as specified in the invitation to tender, was to be over some Sky HD boxes, which is a very dodgy way of doing things, really. I'm sure you all know that your Sky box will go down sometimes. If there's a storm, you won't get much Sky. What we did was house those Sky boxes in 2 different locations. We put them in Media City, where we have our Manchester office, and we put them in Water Lane in Camden. And we had good encoders hanging off the back of them, so we were able to get a genuine HD signal from those. And we call those our primary signal acquisition. And built on top of those is the ability to mix out the signal and to remove adverts from the signal as it's coming through. So we do that in a very sort of old school production way, where the signal's brought in, we mix it out when ad breaks come. For next season, if we do get the contract for next season, we'd look at integrating with the broadcast signal and taking out ads automatically. But at the moment, it wasn't worth the development time to do it for a run of 45 games. So we do it in that way, and we produce from that the VOD asset and the live asset that comes from it. So we do that twice. We do it once in Manchester, and we have a backup in London. But the real kind of, what we call our backup encoders, but the real high-quality encoders are based in Dock 10 in Media City, which is the big facilities owner up there, and in RTE and in Dublin. So the Dock 10 one is an IP feed coming through BT Tower, and the RTE is coming straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. It's actually in their production facility. We're plugged in directly via HD SDI, and we're encoding a beautiful, clean feed from there, and also excludes adverts. So what ends up happening, of course, is that the RTE Dublin is our primary feed. It's the one we use. It's got the adverts already taken out. It's beautiful quality. It's probably about 15% better quality than the ones that come via Sky Satellite, which is not as much as we thought it was, but it's still significantly better. And when I say 15%, I mean simply that 1,000 megabits per second coming through a Sky HD satellite looks like 850 kilobits per second coming through the RTE TerraQ encoders. So the TerraQs are nice boxes. They do an end-to-end H.264 stream at about 5 megabits per second, and we use the Cloud Matrix to transcode to those 17 different transcoding profiles from there. So in terms of the next level, that end user support is a very important part of Live. And the end user support has to be scalable. The thing we really aim for is scalable. It doesn't mean it's hard to actually get through, although it's not as easy as it could be. You don't put a big phone number on the front of the page. What we do have is a structured, frequently asked questions section. We have a very controlled escalation process, and we have as good technology to support it as possible. So this graphic here, and I hesitate to go into it in more detail, this graphic here is a screenshot of the FAQ page. And it looks like a very long FAQ, but if you go into the GAA site, the gaao.ie site, you'll see how easy it is to navigate it. And really, it's based on the idea that it should be all on a single page, that people can search that page easily, and that the links for self-diagnosing are included in the appropriate sections in this page. So it's something we've worked hard to do. We've based it on our experience of many previous live events, and really it's the first part of the gateway. It's the first part of the customer support process. The next part is something mentioned previously, which is the feedback thing within the player. So this is an in-player view. It's got the 5 most frequent problems that occur with the stream, and the user simply selects one of those, presses send, and is returned a unique ID which is associated with that problem. That unique ID also corresponds to the problem reporting section of our back end. And that allows us to work with RTE to establish a refund policy. And it's really the refund policy that underpins the whole support metrics, because in the whole support procedure. Because in many cases, you won't be able to get a user's problem solved if their internet connection is poor. I remember one time when we were doing Burlington horse trials live, and the demographic for the Burlington horse trials was the worst possible for live streaming, because it was lots of posh 50-year-old ladies who were dancing around their kitchen without an internet connection, ringing us up and telling us that they had no streaming at all. And we were only able to refund those people. So in many cases, you'll only be able to refund these people, but the refunds need to be done quickly. They need to be done in an established procedure, something that's done in advance, something where you're not on the day trying to make a desperate call of whether you should do it or not. And it should be a guided process. Guided because then you can get people without a high level of expertise doing it, and they're much cheaper than people with a high level of expertise. So for RTE's case, without going into too many details, initially they should try to play the video. And within the site, video is presented at every opportunity. So when you go to the site, you have various help videos, you have videos that are supposed to be on the page, and if those videos don't load, then you get a message saying you've got a problem. So before you get to pay, you have already seen the video, hopefully. So initially, they should try to play the video. That's a prerequisite. Secondly, they should report the issue, and at that point, their network conditions are captured, as I mentioned. Thirdly, and then this is where you start to actually communicate with them directly. Once they report the issue, they're reporting it via the web form. There is an email address within the FAQ, but generally speaking, they report within the web form, and the web form has a place to enter their unique issue number. So they're then taken via email to the diagnostic page, and that diagnostic page will run through a series of checks, and the checks will suggest recommendations. They will generally be an iterative process where they try some recommended fixes, and if those recommended fixes don't work, then they will get a refund. At the end of the day, there's a very, very simple rule which is in place, and they'll get a refund if they persist through a certain number of iterations. And the decision will be taken at a level simply that if they exchange 3 emails with the support team and are making reasonable efforts, they'll get a refund. If their system's not playing, they clearly want it to play, they want it to play enough to do it 3 times, it's only cost them £2 to start with. No one's going to make £2 out of 3 emails. So it would be 3 iterations, you get your money back. Later on, as the service gains credibility and you're in a less sensitive phase, that number might go down to 2 iterations. So, might go up to 4 iterations. So you might increase the number of iterations that a user is required to do before they get a refund. If they give up after 3, then you've got customers that are dissatisfied sufficiently to exchange 3 emails, but not 4. So you can change it. It's super simple, it's super manageable, and it's a very clear way of setting a barrier. So the third part of this, we've done the first 2 parts, but the third part of this is to make sure for a live event that you subsequently do have on-demand assets. And this is absolutely vital. In this case, we're seeing 3 times as much revenue being generated by the on-demand assets as we are from live, which is hugely valuable. Were those on-demand assets not present, they'd only get a quarter of the revenue, and that wouldn't make the service viable. As it is, it's making a very good profit, and it's making a very good profit out of a niche sport, which is fantastic. So we understand. So that brings us to the question of how do you make your money? Presumably, when you're doing a live event, there's a commercial imperative to do it. Even if there's not a commercial imperative, there is a need to justify it. There's some sort of return on investment need to do it. The first and most obvious way is pay-per-view. So pay-per-view could be a one-off event, it could be a subscription, it could be some sort of deal where you have it included within an overall club membership or an overall club package. But at some point, you're asking people to pay for the event. And we're seeing a typical charge for a sporting event, a kind of a match of between £2 and £6. That kind of level, people are willing to pay. If you go below that, we did for a game last season, we went below that £2. You get many users, but not many more than you do at the £2 level. Above £6, people are really starting to question whether that's the kind of money they're not going to give easily. They're not going to give on a one-off payment. A contrary view to this is Clean. I don't know if anyone knows the payment provider Clean. They're a French-based company, a very nice, smooth payment system. I keep trying to kind of integrate with them, but they keep wanting 99 pence for each transaction they process. And their argument is that premium events can be charged £50. And we just don't ever see this. They keep saying, 99p. I keep saying, you've got to get it to 20p a transaction. We want 10% as an absolute maximum. And they say, no, you should charge. It's a supported event. And what they're really talking about are the kind of Carl Froch, George Groves type event. They're talking about premium music concerts. They have been charging this for cage fighting and those kind of events, but we don't see it. We see £2 to £6 as being the sweet spot for charging for live events, and a commensurate monthly or subscription fee from that. The second way is advertising, and advertising from 3 years ago to now has improved hugely. You used to be able to cut a deal with lots of different ad providers and then find that only 1 out of every 5 of your ad slots was actually filled. That's changed now, and you're seeing many more of those ads filled, almost all of them filled on a routine basis. And funnily enough, the same sort of pricing you see, not the £50, but the £2 to £6 for 1,000 views. So you see a very interesting comparison there between pay-per-view and advertising. You get 1,000 views of your item, and you get about the same money as one subscription. So for live events, advertising is an extremely difficult way to make money. It really isn't as practical as it is for on-demand video, because people are only likely to watch it 1 or 2 times. It's not likely to have that repeat traffic. Protecting your assets via YouTube is a key part of this. YouTube are a company that we work very closely with. We do a lot of Hangouts for Google. And the YouTube technology is absolutely excellent. It's driven widespread video adoption. We certainly don't see it as a threat. We see it as an excellent place to put video. For on-demand content, we see it as a way for users to search for and find the video, and then it's a responsibility of the content owner to bring them back to the site, to engage them more thoroughly and to monetize or extract data from those users. But for live, YouTube has a very interesting piece of technology, that works excellently, and that's their Content ID technology. Essentially what it does is produce a digital fingerprint of your content as you're broadcasting it, and will allow you to block any rebroadcast of that content, which is very important. It means that if you've got a really important live event and you're charging for it, it won't be undermined by being distributed to YouTube. It's something that's easy to set up, it's easy to manage, and it's very, very effective. We were doing a live broadcast for Liverpool recently. They were doing it on our platform and on YouTube at the same time, and the YouTube one got blocked almost immediately because they were playing some music which was contained within an advert. It works extremely effectively. And the nice thing is you can not only block it, you've got 3 choices. You can block it, you can monetize it, or you can monitor it. So as an initial exercise for your content, you should probably just monitor it for a month and just see how many users are using your content, how many claims there would be, or how much money you would generate from it. And you can generate significant amounts of money if your content's being watched widely. Barcelona Football Club generate more money from monetizing the illegal use of their content by third parties on YouTube than they do from their own efforts. So it's a very good source of revenue for them. And the fourth way is betting opportunities. Betting opportunities is something that Perform Group do excellently. They have their watch and bet player. They distribute it traditionally to sports books and have now started distributing it to other sites. But if you have an event where people can place bets and betting isn't contrary to your company or your brand's ethos, you can generate a lot of money from those bets. Because instead of a pay-per-view, you'll get between 20 and 40% of the bet, the losing bet, the profit on the bet accruing to you. And not only do you get it on that bet, but it drops a cookie and you get it on the lifetime activities of the user going to that betting site. So it can be extremely profitable. It's particularly good for sports events, of course. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. In summary, we see four real key elements to the live event paradigm. We see the ability to scale as being critically important, and the role of the cloud, a quality assured cloud within that to be critical. We see error handling both from the production process, the signal acquisition process, and also at the very end when users are having problems as being vitally important. And we see reporting, so you know what's going on, you know when you change something if it's having a great effect. We see that as being critically. And underlying all of this is that quality. You've really got to get a stream to the end user at something above 1 megabit per second for it really to be worthwhile. You've got to have them looking at that and saying, that's pretty good, that's as good as TV, or that's kind of, I can see everything that's going on there. And that's why it's only in the last 5 years that we're really seeing live as being a very valuable, a very viable way of making money and monetizing your assets. So that's me. Those are my contact details. Does anyone have any questions on that? Gentlemen there.
My name's Sam Wilson. I wondered, you mentioned about stripping out the ads. How do you sort of dynamically insert those ads into the content so to reach sort of mobile devices, Android, iOS?
Currently,
it's not it happens. Mobile web.
Currently, it's just done at the production side.
Okay.
So we'll literally be monitoring the stream with real eyeballs, and we'll just switch it out for a slate. Okay. As simple as that. Cool. We have done something very similar. I forget the company that does it now. They're recently acquired by Brightcove. We've done something. Unicorn Media. Yeah, we've done something similar to that. We did it for a particular project last year, but it wasn't as accurate as it would be with a person. So we talked to RTE about it. We said, which would you prefer? And they said, just get it out manually. And, it works like that. It's quite easy to predict when ads are coming up. Anyone else? Great. Well, thank you all very much.